The story begins with a boy named Will Stunter. Today, Christmas holidays had started at his school, but Will wasn't particularly excited about celebrating Christmas with his big family. As he stepped out of school, his eyes fell on a beautiful girl wearing a red scarf. Will fell in love with her at first sight. Somehow, he rushed to catch his bus, and soon that girl also boarded the same bus. In the bus, Will's brothers started teasing him for being shy and reserved, because Will mostly kept to himself and didn't have any friends. Then, his little sister Gwen encouraged him, saying, before she gets off the bus, go and talk to her. But unfortunately, the girl got off at the very next stop. However, she accidentally left her scarf behind on the bus. Will quickly picked up the scarf, but before he could get off and return it, the bus had already started moving. Later, Will and his siblings were walking home when suddenly a man named Leon stopped his car in front of them. Leon worked for the town's royal mistress, Miss Graythorne. He invited Will and his family to attend a Christmas party at the royal mansion. Finally, when Will reached home, he found out that his elder brother Max had also come home for the holidays. Max had taken over Will's room, so now Will had no choice but to sleep in the storage room. In total, Will had 5 elder brothers and 1 little sister. His father, John, seemed to be a cheerful and colorful personality. John had recently gotten a job as a lecturer in this town, which is why they had moved there. Meanwhile, Will's mother was a housewife. Will loved his big family a lot. One night, as they sat down for dinner, John asked Max where he was planning to go for his graduation. Max replied, I'm still thinking about it. At the dinner table, all the boys started teasing Will because he hadn't been able to talk to the girl on the bus. The next day, 2 farmers, Dawson and George, came to bring a Christmas tree for the family. They were very happy to see Will and wished him a happy birthday. Then they mentioned, a storm is coming tonight, though the sky outside looked completely clear. Later, Will's family gave him a lot of presents. Most of the gifts seemed pretty useless, but Will was particularly excited about Gwen's gift. She was the only one who thoughtfully picked out something for him. When Will opened the box, inside was a beautiful watch. Gwen herself put the watch on his wrist and asked him to make a wish. Will wished that it would snow here. That night, when Will woke up, he saw that it was snowing, which made him incredibly happy. But due to the cold, he had to close the windows. However, suddenly, his hands felt so powerful that even with a simple touch, the windows were about to break. The next day, Will was at a bus stop when he noticed a tree nearby covered with crows. Soon, the bus arrived and Will boarded, heading to the mall. He had come there to buy a Christmas gift for Gwen. He quickly found a beautiful pendant for her. Just as Will was about to leave the mall, 2 policemen stopped him. They accused him of stealing the pendant and took him for questioning. As they entered a room, Will realized that something was definitely wrong. The lights in the room kept flickering, and the officers' appearances kept changing. The officers then asked him about signs, but Will didn't know what they were referring to. Suddenly, the real forms of the officers were revealed, and they tried to attack Will. But Will, surprisingly, pushed them away and managed to escape, realizing for the first time how strong he had become. The 2 officers chased him, but Will skillfully escaped their grasp. He still couldn't understand what was happening and why these people were after him. He tried to tell his father about the strange things happening to him, but his father and the rest of the family didn't pay him any attention. Later that evening, Will and his family arrived at the royal mansion for the Christmas party, where the same 2 farmers, Dawson and George, appeared in front of him. Leon and Miss Graythorne were wondering if they should reveal Will's fate to him. Meanwhile, Will was walking alone in the forest when suddenly, a man on horseback, along with his dog, started chasing him. Will fled for his life, but the man's horse was faster and caught up with him. The man asked Will about the signs, but Will didn't know what he was talking about. Just then, Leon and Miss Graythorne arrived and ordered the rider to leave Will alone. As the rider was leaving, he warned, in a few days you will get your powers back, and when I return, no one will be left alive. Will stood there, stunned, as Leon and his companions used magic to transport him back in time, to an ancient world. They told Will that he was an ancient warrior destined to save the light of the world. They explained that hundreds of years ago, a battle had taken place at a place called the Great Hall, between light and darkness. Though light had won, it was never able to completely defeat darkness. Now, in order to permanently defeat darkness, Will would need to gather 6 magical signs. Only then could he defeat the evil forces once and for all. They also told him that his powers had awakened on his birthday, and that was when he began seeing the signs. Soon, the rider, who had come to kill him, also began to feel his powers awakening. Others could feel his increasing power too. Will was still confused as to why he had these powers, so Leon explained that, according to ancient stories, Will was a seeker, the 7th son of a 7th son. They had an ancient book called the Book of Grammar, which contained information about recognizing the signs, and only Will could read it. Upon hearing this, Will laughed, saying, "But I only have 5 brothers. I'm not the 7th son of a 7th son. I'm the 6th. He said they had chosen the wrong person. Will tried to walk away, but Leon and his companions told him he couldn't turn away from his fate. At that moment, Will saw a vision of the future, where darkness had taken over the world. This terrified him, and in a panic, he found himself on a street where he almost had an accident. Somehow, he managed to reach home where he did some more research. He then went to ask his father, who was a physics professor, some questions about whether light could defeat darkness. John replied, "Why are you thinking about such deep things? You're at an age to enjoy yourself." Later, Will went back to the storage room, where he found a picture of two twin children. He took the picture to his mother, Mary, who then revealed that Will had a twin brother named Tom. When Will and Tom were just 2 weeks old, a terrible storm struck, causing the babies to cry. Mary took Will downstairs and asked John to bring Tom. At that time, John was working on his thesis, so he went to Tom's room a minute later. However, to his dismay, Tom was not there. Despite searching everywhere, Tom was never found again. This incident devastated John, and he stopped working on his thesis and fell into depression. Will realized that a great danger was looming over the world. Understanding the gravity of the situation, he decided to join forces with the ancient warriors. He read the ancient book and discovered that he had many powers. He could recognize the sign of light. He could move things with the power of his mind. He could travel through time. He had incredible strength. He could summon fire with his hands. However, Will was disappointed that he couldn't fly like Superman, which was something he really hoped for. Then Leon taught Will how to use his powers. It was during this time that Will realized that the first sign was in the pendant he had given to Gwen. Shortly after, he discovered the second sign as well, but to unlock it, he would need to travel back in time with the other warriors. When they arrived in this strange world, an old woman attacked them with poisonous snakes, which immediately wrapped around them. However, Will broke free using his powers and obtained the second sign. With it, he and his team returned to the church. After talking to Leon, Will learned about a forebear of his, named Thomas, who had created these magical signs. Leon explained that the sixth sign had never been found because it wasn't hidden at all. However, Leon assured Will that he was from that very family. That night, we see the writer meeting with a mysterious man who tells him that his dark powers are growing stronger with each passing day. Meanwhile, Will has already acquired 2 of the signs, meaning he is becoming more powerful as well. The writer then instructs the man to collect all the signs and promises a reward in return. On the other side, Will is having dinner with his family when James shows up, bringing Maggie along. Maggie is the same girl Will has liked since the beginning. When Will finds out that they are now together, he feels quite heartbroken. After a while, Maggie approaches Will and tells him that she also has extraordinary powers. She shows him a sign made of salt crystals. After dinner, Will decides to show Maggie a sample of his powers. He then asks her why she is with James and if she is part of the Ancient Warriors team. Maggie responds that Will shouldn't focus on such trivial matters but instead be ready for his upcoming mission. She tells him she is not a warrior, but she is there for his protection. Summoning all his courage, Will confesses to Maggie that ever since he saw her, he felt an intense pull toward her. He can't stop thinking about her and finally admits his love for her. But just as he's confessing, James interrupts, asking what they were talking about. Maggie quickly says that she was just waiting for James while talking to Will. After Maggie leaves, Will becomes furious and rushes to speak to Leon. He says, "I don't think I can save the world. I can't even talk to girls properly. How am I supposed to save the world?" Leon responds, "You are a seeker. You can do anything you want." Leon then explains, "You've got a lifetime to learn how to talk to girls, son. Focus on your mission right now." After hearing Leon's words, Will stormed out of the house, fuming with anger. As he walked through the forest, flames erupted from the trees around him, ignited by his uncontrolled emotions. Miss Graythorn, witnessing the chaos, scolded Leon for not paying attention to what was going on inside Will's mind. Just moments later, Gwen followed Will and reached the royal palace. She asked if he was okay, but Will assured her that everything was fine. However, as he gazed at the clouds in the sky, he realized the third sign was about to be revealed. Taking Gwen's hand, Will used time travel to arrive in a village where people were fighting. As Will and Gwen evaded the soldiers, Will spotted the third sign hidden inside a shield. They chased after the soldier carrying the shield, eventually boarding a small boat. When Will tried to take the shield, a massive man grabbed him and threw him into the water, preparing to attack. However, the man was distracted by Will's watch, and after a brief exchange, he agreed to trade the shield for the watch. With that, Will successfully obtained the third sign. After returning home, Will told Gwen to keep everything that had happened a secret. Leon scolded Will for using his powers, warning him to conserve his strength for the coming battle. Despite his reprimand, Leon later apologized and promised to protect him from now on. Upon returning home, Will found Max waiting for him. Max mentioned that he would be staying for a few more weeks, but Will paid him no attention. Suddenly, Max grabbed Will by the collar and spoke in an eerie voice. It became clear that Max was under the control of the writer. In that moment, Will sensed the fourth sign. He traveled with Max to another location, where Max attacked him and demanded all the information about the signs. Will reminded Max that he had dropped out of college because of his failure in exams and reassured him that his family wouldn't criticize him for it. Will gave Max the courage to overcome his fears so that Ryder couldn't control him anymore. But when this didn't work, Will knocked Max out with a punch, obtaining the fourth sign and returning to his world. When Max regained consciousness, Will explained that he had passed out from the fight. The next morning, the city was covered in a fierce snowstorm, affecting transportation, water, and electricity. Miss Graython then ordered John and his family to stay in the royal palace for safety. Meanwhile, it was revealed that Maggie had been working with the rider. She was a witch who had been helping the rider in exchange for the power to stay eternally young. The rider told Maggie that Will had obtained 4 of the signs, and it was imperative to steal them from him. As Will was preparing to obtain the 5th sign, Leon called for him to meet in the Great Hall. But Will was no longer interested, as even if he acquired the 5th sign, they still had no idea where the 6th sign was. Nevertheless, Leon remained confident that Will was the one who would defeat the rider and save the world from the reign of darkness. Soon after, Maggie met Will in the royal palace and demanded the signs from him. Just as Will was about to hand over the signs, his eyes fell on the 5th sign, and he risked his life to obtain it. Now he refused to give Maggie any of the signs. Unable to get what she wanted, Maggie was punished by the rider for breaking their pact. She rapidly aged into an old woman and drowned in the river. Meanwhile, the rider's powers had grown immensely, and he began causing chaos in the city. On the other side, Will arrived with the other warriors at the Great Hall, where it was a law that the rider was not allowed to enter without being summoned. Suddenly, they heard Will's father's voice outside, asking them to open the door. The warriors tried to stop him, but then Gwen's voice followed, saying that her brother was seriously injured. After hearing Mary asking for help, Will gave in to his emotions and opened the door, only to realize too late that the voices were manipulated by the rider to deceive him. As soon as the rider entered, his dark energy extinguished the lights in the room. The ancient warriors tried to fight him, but he was too powerful. One by one, they were defeated and thrown into darkness. Now Will had to face the rider. The rider attacked Will and asked where his family and friends were during his time of need. He then revealed a magical orb, inside which Will's twin brother Tom was imprisoned. It was revealed that the rider had kidnapped Tom 14 years ago, believing that Tom was the seeker. The rider threw the orb into the water of the Great Hall, and Will tried to search for his brother in the pitch-black surroundings. The rider, however, threw Will into the dark clouds and left the hall, spreading darkness and seeking to conquer the world. As Will wandered in the dark clouds, he suddenly remembered everything about the 6th sign. It became clear to him that he himself was the final sign. All his powers awakened at once, allowing him to break through the darkness of the rider. With the magical orb in hand, Will emerged from the Great Hall and using his powers, trapped the rider and his darkness in the orb, then threw it into a river. As soon as he did this, light returned to the city, and Tom was freed from the orb. Finally, after being separated for so many years, the two brothers reunited. Will then told the warriors that he wanted to go home, and they granted him permission, as his mission was now complete. In the end, Will and Tom returned home, and their family rejoiced in Tom's safe return. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.